Congressman Mike Flood, a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here, and it's great to see you again. I want to get your take on the reaction from these countries to President Trump's tariffs threats. There was a tweet yesterday that said, Mexican president announces she is stopping the migrant caravans from arriving at the U.S. southern border after Trump's tariff threat. The announcement came only after 12 hours after the president said it. But now we're seeing that the transcript of her comments, she's basically saying, look, the caravans aren't even going to the U.S. anymore. Do you have any sense of how Mexico is responding? Will they, in fact, get on board with helping to stop some of this illegal activity at the border?
Well, it's in their security interest, and it's in their national security interest, and it's in their financial security interest. Yes. Isn't it refreshing to have a president paying attention to what's coming into our country and be done with this idea that we have no way to stop any of this stuff happening? We're just going to let them into the United States. I'm excited just to have a president that cares about trade. For the first time in 4 years, we're talking about our relationships, our trade relationships with major partners. And so I think all of this is progress. At the end of the day, Donald Trump either on January 20th will sign an executive order for Remain in Mexico, or he might have a bill from the House and Senate ready to be signed that really takes us down the field.
Now, President-elect Trump's team is holding discussions on possibly creating a new White House position dedicated to crypto policy. The administration wants to expand the power of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission as well by granting that CFTC oversight of the digital asset market. All of this happening as Trump gets the chance to pick the next head of the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, with Chairman Gary Gensler stepping down in January. Congressman, I know you've been working on digital assets a lot, and you see major change coming. Walk us through how that plays out. What do you expect?
Well, we are going to unlock innovation in America again. This has been very frustrating under Joe Biden and Gary Gensler at the SEC, who has gone out with this power that he thinks he has to do these unreasonable enforcement actions and try and guide an industry into the ground. Today, you know, the headline is Donald Trump wants to make America a leader in digital assets. If you think of it this way, back in 1995, America unleashed the power of the internet, Web 1.0. We are on the dawn of Web 3.0, and we are riding in the back seat with countries like the UAE and the European Union and Singapore dictating to the rest of the world how we're going to treat digital assets. This is America's issue. This is something that we need to do to make sure that the U.S. dollar remains the world's reserve currency. Yeah. And with the announcements you're talking about, we're going in the right direction.
So tell me about that. How do you keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency while also creating a backdrop for growth in digital assets? What's the plan?
Well, two different approaches. One is stablecoins. And on the Financial Services Committee, we have, thanks to Chairman McHenry and Congressman French Hill and so many other hardworking members, we've put together an entire stablecoin regime. Now, remember, a stablecoin is backed by $1 in a U.S. bank. One stablecoin equals $1. It allows emerging economies in continents like Africa to trade essentially in U.S. dollars using a stablecoin regime that is backed by, American banks. That's what we're excited about in Congress. This isn't about replacing the U.S. dollar. It's about strengthening its power. And then simply creating a market structure where regulators can say, okay, Bitcoin is a commodity. It's going to be regulated by the CFTC. This asset over here is a security, and it would fall under the domain of the Securities and Exchange Commission. We're not talking about building a fancy mansion. We're talking about building a foundation on which digital assets can exist and thrive and unlock that innovation in America that has been really offshored for so long. That's why Bitcoin ends up in the Bahamas, because they couldn't live here and be subject to real regulation. I shouldn't say Bitcoin, I'm sorry, FTX.
I love what you're saying, because you're making the rules clear. And I think the clarity end of this was one of the issues for this market to really be believed, because people weren't sure who was running it, who was overseeing it, and what the rules were. And that was because the Biden administration just threw lots of climate change agenda rules at every single agency. Isn't that right? And you know, corporations had to follow all of those new regulations.
Well, they were busy with the with the environmental stuff, and then this idea with digital assets that we're going to use enforcement actions. You don't even know what the law is, right? There's really nothing on some of these subjects, and suddenly you've got an SEC investigation shutting down markets. Gary Gensler set America back 20 years. We are nowhere near where we need to be in terms of the digital asset economy with stablecoins. And it really, thank God President Trump is here, it's really going to unlock a new era for America and in fintech.
And I know you want to be number one ahead of China. China also wants that role. Do you want to say anything about China and pushing back on some of the passage of a legislation to exclude U.S. sanctioned companies, Chinese companies, and their subsidiaries from having access to our capital markets? You've got plenty of Chinese stocks still trading on our exchanges, that some of which were sanctioned.
Absolutely. When President Xi wakes up every single morning, his goal is to become the world's sole superpower by 2050. They want to destroy the American economy. I really believe that China is our biggest threat from a national security perspective. They want to get in bed with other countries. They want to get in bed with other communist regimes. It's time for America to lead here in digital assets. Otherwise, to your point, the Chinese will be the world's reserve currency on continents like Africa, emerging markets, and that's not in our interest.
No, that's absolutely right. They are already trying that in Africa. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
And to you, happy Thanksgiving, Mike Flood in Nebraska. We'll be right back.